If I launched a video game and saw a $30 price tag on this, I'm uninstalled. But so many players pay for it. Some game developers have gotten so outrageous, they'll even charge you to save your game.
You serious?
And that's not even the greediest thing I've found in games. Metal Gear Solid 5 is by all things considered incredible, but it has one of the worst examples of pay to win. So it's a single player game, but there's online features that invite other players to invade your lobby. Now players are accusing them of doing this for profit, because you see, you get these bases called fobs, and they're your central way to store items and resources. However, enemy players can straight up raid it and steal your stuff while you're not playing. And of course, there is a way to prevent it. Simply open your wallet and you'll get MB coins to buy insurance. Now, in their defense, you can get coins from daily bonuses, but it's a grind, and it forces most people to just spend real cash. Now I gotta talk about Tekken 7, which might have the most disgusting microtransaction I've ever heard of. In fighting games like this, each character has an advantage based on their animations. Basically, you can throw a quick punch and the time it takes is different for every fighter. Well, if you want to actually know this information and discover how many frames are in each attack, Bandai Namco literally charges you $3 for it. If you're slightly a competitive player, you had to get this. It was such a greedy decision that the DLC was bombarded with negative reviews. A little bit of faith restored there, but another situation happening in the industry is $80 games. Nintendo was the first publisher to come out and start doing it, and now we're basically all worried that developers will see it and hop on the bandwagon. So fans of Borderlands 4 have been begging the Gearbox CEO to make sure it's not that expensive, and his response was jaw-dropping. Not my call. If you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. My local store had Starflight for $80 when I was just out of high school working minimum wage, and I still found a way to make it. It basically called his own fans broke. It's one way to handle it, I guess. But it's still not as messed up as Resident Evil Village charging you to play in third person. When they released the Winter's expansion for the game, it came with a ton of stuff, including a 3-hour-long DLC mission that's exclusively in third person. That's fine, except they also updated the base game to allow you to play this entirely in the new camera view. Only issue is, you had to buy the DLC to unlock this, which annoyed tons of players. Now, not to mention, Resident Evil is historically a third-person franchise, so it felt a little weird to force people to pay just to unlock this. A lot of players consider third-person an accessibility option because it helps with motion sickness, so it's just a slap in the face. Now, first-person, it also has downsides that scam you. In Black Ops 6, the developer sold the $20 weapon called the Occult. If you took off the scope, you will quickly realize they overlooked simple design when making it.
But the second that I start firing, the blueprint all of a sudden blocks my view, and it is incredibly hard to see, and it's just not practical.
These iron sights are straight up laughable. Did none of the devs even test this? Now, I will admit, microtransactions in a multiplayer FPS, they're expected at this point. What you don't want to see are payments thrown into a $60 single-player game. And yet in Assassin's Creed, this has been happening for years. Well, nowadays, it's usually cool outfits or cosmetics, not a quick level boost. It's just absurd. And this gets even crazier when you hear Tales of Arise sells DLC as DLC. That's right, you can buy the premium travel pack, which gives you more effective cooking and crafting, but also 30% off general store items. Yes, you can spend real money to make further spending a little bit cheaper, and most people think this is a bargain because the developers also made everything really expensive in game. So instead of getting a discount, you're really just getting what the prices should be. If you're wondering why Multiverse is shut down, here's one of the reasons. The devs got stupidly greedy. Like, you know how Jason Voorhees and Arya Stark from Game of Thrones are both in the game? Pretty cool, right? Not to mention you can play as both of them for relatively cheap thanks to the battle passes and the free currencies, but this is where things got interesting. You can spend real money on costumes for these characters, and Multiverses came up with the most random collab of all. Arya with a Jason hockey mask. It's interesting, but this sets you back $30.
Oh, hell no!
You can argue some of these games have just been overpriced rather than outright greedy, but when I show you what's in the First Ascendant, I don't think anyone will disagree this is straight up theft. When you spend money on an outfit, you then unlock the ability to customize it through paint jobs. Except you then have to spend money on the color you want, and once you've applied it, it only works for that specific item. So if you want to add that same color on the head rather than the body, tough luck, you're gonna have to buy it all over again. It's one of the greediest things I've ever seen in a game. And in my opinion, so is League of Legends Sanctum. Late last year, they introduced a way to get insanely rare skins through gacha. I know, but here's where it gets worse. Just like other gacha games like Genshin or Honkai Star monorail, you get a pity system where if you can't get the featured character after so many pulls, you're basically guaranteed to earn it. The problem is League of Legends pity system, it's extra greedy. For a skin like Arcane Fractured Jinx, the chance of getting her is literally 0.5%, and she's only guaranteed after 80 pulls. So that means some players have spent over $250 before they get her, which left fans furious. So a couple months later in February, Riot heard all of the backlash and were forced to make changes, except the only changes were making the skin advertisements less invasive. Such a cringe situation. In more promising news, Black Ops 6 recently brought back a fan favorite mode for zombies called Grief. Basically, you have to outlast another team of players and can sabotage them with griefs, except with the new version, the developers let players use gobble gums. Yeah, and considering you could just spend a ton of real money on packs to grab the most overpowered gums, Grief has become a straight up pay to win mode. It just makes it way easier to last longer than enemies. And obviously, that's not the only way Activision has betrayed players. When the new Crash Team Racing was announced, people noticed there was an in-game store and asked the devs, hey, these aren't microtransactions, are they? Luckily, they said no, and everything could be earned through simply playing the game. All was good. At release, Crash Team Racing got stellar reviews, and now they had their excited player base on board. So what'd they do? They broke their promise with the microtransaction update. It feels like the ultimate betrayal. Like this is somehow worse than just dropping them on day one. Now it's just personal. It's just like when Persona 3 Reload came out and was meant to be the complete experience. People spent up to like $200 on this game with the collector's edition, assuming it would give them all of the content on offer. Then 1 month passes and Atlas dropped the expansion pass for $35. This included a ton of cut content that was in the original game, but now costs extra for Reload. It's just a shameless cash grab. What about when a company is so greedy, it gets their CEO fired? Unity is a gigantic game engine. Some of your favorite games are probably made with it. So in 2023, they announced a ridiculous change. Once you hit 200,000 installs in your game, Unity would charge you 20 cents for every single player afterwards. What? In a world where other engines like Unreal are trying to make things less expensive for developers, this was a huge middle finger to indie devs, especially because a lot of people tend to uninstall and then reinstall their favorite games to make storage. So in response, studios like Facepunch, who make Rust and Garry's Mod, had a simple statement for Unity. You could get f***ed. The community went up in flames about this, and Unity immediately backtracked, going as far as the CEO resigning from the company. Take that as a W. Speaking of terrible CEOs, back in 2011, the boss of EA came out with the most outrageous microtransaction idea pretty much in the history of video games. He was talking about how you can make people think less about the price of something if they feel like they need it. And his example, when you're 6 hours in a battlefield and you run out of ammo in your clip and we ask you for $1 to reload, you're really not that price sensitive at that point in time. I'm not joking, he genuinely had ideas about charging people to reload in Battlefield. Also, fun fact, this is the same guy from Unity. Gotta be the most out-of-touch gaming CEO of all time. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was the person who created Dead or Alive Season Pass. So not only is this a full-price game on its own, but if you wanted a Season Pass that only includes 2 brand new characters, you'll have to dish out another, hang on, hold up for this one, you ready? $92. Like, it's literally more expensive than the game itself, and there's a new one every couple of months. Who's buying this? Now these stories, unfortunately, they only get worse. Let's talk about this charm in Overwatch 2 that costs $7. Now it's pretty standard for this kind of item, but in reality it's closer to $10 because you could only buy like 500 or 1,000, not 700. Besides the point, considering no matter what, it's still more expensive than buying the charm in real life. I'm not exaggerating. You could go to Blizzard's own merch store right now and grab this exact same item as a keychain for just $5. Virtually more expensive than real life. Like, make it make sense. GTA Online. Nowadays, you look at shark cards and think, well, I don't really need to buy these. I could just grind a couple of heists and afford the cars I want. Wasn't the case back in 2014. A ton of people have forgotten about this, but shark cards were actually released before heists even existed. Rockstar wanted to keep players engaged before the update, and they needed some way to let them earn a ton of money without getting bored. So they just offered to let them pay for it instead, and now it's actually one of the best-selling microtransactions in gaming history. If you know anything about this stuff, you'll know all of this began with the Horse Armor DLC in Oblivion, literally the origin of microtransactions. Well, that came full circle when The Sims 4 announced their own DLC pack called Horse Riding. Fans have been wanting this expansion for like 7 years, and when it dropped, it cost $40. And the worst part is it kind of sucked. You could barely interact with the horses other than riding them, breeding was lackluster, and apparently there was better horse content in the last game's generic pets DLC than this one dedicated to horses. Now, I'm not exactly a businessman, but I will tell you one rule about business I do know. You don't charge for something that was previously free. It leaves a sour taste, and Disney does it anyway. In the racing game Speedstorm, you were able to unlock the premium part of the battle pass through in-game currency. Something you could just basically earn by playing. People loved it, and it was super refreshing after years of having to drop cash on battle passes. Then, out of nowhere, the devs announced that moving forward, premium tracks now had to be bought, and the option to grind from them banned. Thankfully, common sense players went straight to review bombing, and some people who bought the game in early access even asked for a refund. That's how you handle this. Remember earlier when I talked about EA thinking about charging you for reloading? Well, there's one developer who actually went through with something like this. If you wanted to start a new save game in Metal Gear Survive, or even just play again with a new character, guess what? This basic feature, it costs $10. And no, this isn't a free-to-play MMO where that would be believable. It's a $40 full-price game. What was the most egregious thing you saw in this video? Let me know in the comments. It's been Tommy, and keep it here on T5G.